Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. My name is Aishwarya Kapoor. Let us start the news bulletin with the headlines. Contribution of Asian democracies to global discourse must grow rapidly, says Prime Minister Modi. In video message to 4th edition of Samvad conference in Tokyo, says mutual accommodation and respect help democracy. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu applauds the centre's generous hike in minimum support price for Kharif crops, says measure reaffirms government's resolve to double farmers' incomes, will boost production of pulses. Supreme Court verdict on plea challenging existing roster system in the Apex Court today. Plea questioned allocation of cases by master of rosters, saying it cannot be an unbridled discretionary power. US-China trade war. Steep US tariffs on Chinese goods takes effect. 25% tariffs on $34 billion worth goods. Beijing vows to retaliate with a 25% levy on US goods of same value. And FIFA quarter-finals kick off today. Brazil bid for their 6th World Cup title as they clash with Belgium, and France take on Uruguay. Both teams have been unbeaten in the tournament so far. Our top story this morning, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that the contribution of Asian democracies to global discourse needs to enhance rapidly. In a video message for the 4th edition of a Samvad being held in Tokyo, the Prime Minister said that Asia's role has to grow with its rise in economic and political stature globally. The theme for this year's symposium is shared values and democracy in Asia. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe spoke at the program. Prime Minister Modi also drew parallels in the rooting of Hindu and Buddhist civilizations in democratic values. He said that mutual accommodation and respect help democracy, and that democracy is not just a system of voting. The first edition of Samvad was held in Delhi, second in Tokyo, and third in Yangon.
Openness and not dogma, and engaging in philosophy and not ideology give us our shared heritage of democratic spirit. This philosophical and cultural heritage of dialogue in the two most ancient Asian faiths, Hinduism and Buddhism, helps us promote better understanding. Emperor Ashoka's rock edict brings out the fact that Ashoka wanted the essentials of all faiths to grow. The core values of Asia, namely consideration for others, self-restraint and mutual respect, find their historical origin in Ashoka's edict 2300 years ago. Those are the values that have sustained the culture of democracies in Asia. Historical evidence from Tamil Nadu during the reign of Raja Chola in the 10th century tells us that a detailed system of voting and elections was in vogue long before even the Magna Carta 200 years later. Democracy is not just a system of voting. Democracy, a core value such as self-restraint and mutual respect, make the democratic system function for the benefit of all. Sarvajan Hitay, Sarvajan Sukhay. The Asian values of mutual accommodation and respect enable democracies to function on the consensual model and not purely in a competitive model.
And on to the other top story, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Thursday praised the government's decision to hike the MSP of Kharif crops. He also appreciated the government's resolve to double the farmers' income by 2022. Addressing a session at the Central Ireland Agricultural Research Institute in Port Blair, the Vice President stressed on the need to streamline the procurement process and the PDS network so that the farmers derive maximum benefit. He added that other income-enhancing measures also need to be taken to mitigate agrarian distress, especially of the small and marginal farmers. Also urging the scientific community to have regular interaction with the farmers, Naidu said that a good synergy between research institutes, farmers and the local administration is crucial for the development of the farm sector.
I compliment the government. I welcome the announcement of the government of increasing the MSP, and feel happy, but at the same time, much more needed to be done in order to make agriculture sustainable and viable. In addition to providing MSP of 50% more than over the cost of production, there is a need for streamline the procurement process.
The Vice President also visited the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Institute of Technology in Port Blair, and addressing the students, he said that the Indian higher education system needs to reinvent itself to respond to the emerging challenges of a rapidly changing knowledge economy. The Vice President said that the real education must foster all-round development of students. And while in Andaman, the Vice President also visited the cellular jail where valiant freedom fighters were meted out the most cruel and inhuman treatment by the British. He visited the solitary confinement cell of Veer Savarkar and also paid tributes to the great freedom fighter. Built in 1906, the jail acquired the name cellular as the entire structure is made up of individual cells which are meant for solitary confinement. The jail holds many horrific stories of our independence heroes who were incarcerated in this jail. And on to some other news. Bhutanese Prime Minister Tshering Tobgay will hold extensive talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi today. The talks are expected to focus on defence, security and strategic cooperation between the two neighbouring countries. The two leaders are expected also to deliberate on the situation in the Doklam Tri-Junction, which is the site of a 73-day-long standoff between Indian and Chinese armies last year. Bhutanese Prime Minister arrived in India on a 3-day visit on Wednesday afternoon. He earlier met with External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and discussed ways to deepen overall bilateral cooperation. And South Korean President Moon Jae-in will arrive on his first state visit to India on Sunday, the 8th of July. Moon Jae-in will hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday, and India expects the 4-day visit of the South Korean president to open new avenues for expanding bilateral partnership. The two leaders are also expected to sign agreements to boost bilateral ties. Moon Jae-in will be accompanied by First Lady Kim Jong-suk, senior members of his cabinet, officials as well as industry captains. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu and External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj will also call on the visiting leader on Monday. And Moon will also meet President Ram Nath Kovind, who will host a banquet in his honour. Prime Minister Modi earlier visited South Korea in May 2015, during which the bilateral partnership was elevated to a special strategic partnership.
The main working day will be July 10th. In the morning, as usual, there will be a ceremonial reception which will be accorded to President Moon, and this will be followed by official level talks between Prime Minister and President Moon at Hyderabad House. The two leaders will also address the India ROK CEOs roundtable. We also expect some agreements to be signed during the visit. In the evening, President Moon will meet Honorable Rashtrapati Ji, and Honorable Rashtrapati Ji will also host a banquet in honor of the visiting dignitary.
News from the national capital. The Supreme Court will pronounce its judgment on a plea challenging the existing roster practice of the allocation of cases in the Apex Court by the Chief Justice of India. The plea has been filed by former Law Minister Shanti Bhushan, and the PIL says that the master of roster cannot be an unguided and unbridled discretionary power exercised arbitrarily by the CJI. The petitioner had also said that his plea was to strengthen the court and not directed against any individual. A bench of Justices A.K. Sikri and Ashok Bhushan had on 27th of April reserved its verdict. Attorney General K.K. Venugopal had opposed the petition, saying that any attempt to delegate the power of allocation of cases to other judges would lead to chaos. He had stressed on the need for unity among the judges of the top court and had said that Bhushan's petition to vest the power of allocation to the 5-member collegium might lead to conflict among the judges, besides the multiplicity of authorities. And the Supreme Court is also likely to resume hearing on the contentious Ayodhya land dispute case today. A special bench of Chief Justice Deepak Mishra and Justices Ashok Bhushan and S.A. Nazir had on 17th of May heard submissions on behalf of Hindu groups that had opposed the plea of their Muslim counterparts that the 1994 verdict holding that a mosque was not integral to the prayers offered by the followers of Islam be referred to a larger bench. The special bench of the Apex Court is seized of a total of 14 appeals filed against the High Court judgment, which was delivered in 4 civil suits. A 3-judge bench of the Allahabad High Court, in a 2-1 majority ruling, had in 2010 ordered that the land be partitioned equally among 3 parties: the Sunni Waqf Board, the Nirmohi Akhara and Ram Lalla. And the centre on Thursday asked the states and the union territories to check the incidents of mob lynching fueled by the rumours of child lifting on social media. In an advisory, the Home Ministry has urged the states and the union territories to keep a watch for early detection of rumours of child lifting and initiate effective measures to counter them. The states and union territories have been asked to direct district administrations to identify the vulnerable areas and conduct community outreach programs for creating awareness. They have also been directed to properly investigate the complaints of child abduction and kidnapping. Remember, more than 20 people were lynched over the last 2 months on suspicion of child lifting in India. And Human Resource Development Minister Prakash Javadekar has lauded Union Cabinet's decision to expand the scope of the Higher Education Financing Agency by enhancing its capital base to 10,000 crore rupees. In a tweet, Prakash Javadekar said that the landmark decision will give a big boost to higher education this year. He also hailed the centre's decision to raise the MSP of Kharif crops, terming it as a revolutionary move.
The Higher Education Finance Agency, a new way of financing over and above the budget, has been introduced by the government, which is a revolutionary decision, because we always think that there must be more expenditure on education.
And in another decision, the HRD Ministry has extended the deadline for receiving feedback and suggestions from stakeholders on the scrapping of the UGC and the draft bill for replacing it till 20th of July. The HRD Ministry had last week announced its decision to replace the UGC with the Higher Education Commission for India by repealing the UGC Act 1951. And according to the draft, the new commission will solely focus on academic matters. Monetary grants would be placed under the purview of the HRD Ministry. And in Breakfast News, time for a very short break. We'll be back with more news. Don't go anywhere.
Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I am Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will take a look at indigenously developed light combat aircraft Tejas.
Tejas has got a big place as far as numbers and in the low capability is concerned in the Air Force scheme of things.
If you have to actually encourage innovation, if you have to encourage indigenization, you have to accept the aircraft initially with certain shortfalls and then keep improving upon it.
We need to have an international level of production line, 30 planes per year for the next 10 years to make it work.
Welcome back after the break. Now, adhering to a 1949 agreement with China, India will refer to the Taiwan airport as Chinese Taipei Airport. The Indian gesture is understood to be a signal of growing understanding with China on several core issues. Beijing has welcomed the decision of India.
National carrier Air India's website now calls Taiwan as Chinese Taipei. An airline spokesperson said this is in line with instructions from the Ministry of External Affairs. Various airlines worldwide identify Taiwan as a separate region.
Air India's decision to rename the destination of Taiwan as Chinese Taipei is entirely consistent with international norms and our own position on Taiwan since 1949.
China has welcomed Air India's decision. In April, the Civil Aviation Authority of China reportedly sent out letters to various foreign airlines asking them to change the way Taiwan is referred to in their websites.
I have very explicitly given you our position that what they have done is entirely consistent with international norms, which explains your observation. And also it is in line with our own position on Taiwan, which we have consistent position since 1949.
Air India has only one direct flight to Shanghai besides flights to Hong Kong. While it does not have flights to Chinese Taipei, it has a code share with Air China. Carriers like Singapore Airlines, Japan Airlines and Air Canada have also changed the description of Taiwan on their websites. 19 countries have given the status of independent nation status to Taiwan. Over 100 countries including India do have separate relations with Taiwan. But they don't give Taiwanese representatives ambassador status, but as a trade representative. China views Taiwan, an island which has been independent since 1950, as a rebel region that must be reunited with the mainland by force if necessary. Taiwan calls itself a democratic, self-ruled country in East Asia. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And news from Pakistan, where ahead of the general elections, the most ambitious project of China, that is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is facing dissent in Pakistan. While the corridor is intended to boost the economy of Pakistan, it is only managing to increase discontent in the Balochistan province. So let us take a look at what are the reasons.
Dissent is brewing in the Balochistan province of Pakistan over the multi-billion-dollar China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And ahead of the elections in Pakistan on 25th of July, this issue is taking on political color. Media reports say, while the project has not generated enough jobs in the region, local residents are complaining against the disruption of normal life and atrocities committed allegedly by the military in the region. The problem is reportedly the most acute in the Gwadar, a volatile region that often experiences protests and violence, which is why the government has deployed the army in the region. Located on the southwestern coast of Balochistan, the Gwadar port is significant for China, which wants to access the Arabian Sea for its exports. Last month, a Balochistan group held protest in front of the Chinese embassy in London on the issue. Free Balochistan movement activists claimed that China is telling Pakistan to relocate Baloch villages that are on the route of CPEC. It also alleged that Pakistan is committing huge human rights violations at the behest of China in the province. The Free Balochistan movement also launched a campaign in other countries, including the United States and Germany, on the corridor. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
News from Jammu and Kashmir now, where a Jammu and Kashmir police constable was abducted and killed by militants in Shopian district. His body was found in Kulgam. He was abducted from outside his house on Thursday. Security forces were alerted and operations were launched to track down the kidnappers for rescuing the corpse. Meanwhile, Amarnath Yatra has resumed from the Pahalgam route. A batch of 4,600 pilgrims has started moving towards the Chandanwadi from the Pahalgam base camp. Yatra was suspended from both the Baltal and Pahalgam routes due to heavy rains. The Yatra remains suspended from the Baltal route due to inclement weather. On 3rd of July, 3 pilgrims and a helper were killed and 7 others were injured in a landslide that hit the Brari Marg rail patti stretch of the trek from Baltal to the cave shrine. The 60-day yatra is scheduled to conclude on 26th of August. Meanwhile, in the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, evacuation is underway to rescue the stranded pilgrims there. For the fourth day, 88 pilgrims have been airlifted by 5 flights and a chopper this morning. Over 900 pilgrims have been evacuated from Simikot in Nepal so far. Now, the Indian embassy says the situation is under control. A top international focus now. US President Donald Trump has fired his biggest shot yet in the US-China trade war. Steep American tariffs worth over $34 billion on over 800 Chinese goods has come into effect. Now, this means that businesses will have to pay 25% additional tax on $34 billion of certain Chinese products that they import, including aircraft tires and commercial dishwashers. And another $16 billion of goods could follow in 2 weeks. Donald Trump has also threatened a 10% levy on an additional $200 billion of Chinese goods if Beijing doesn't change its practices, and has warned to progressively ratchet up the US penalties to a total of $450 billion in goods. Meanwhile, Beijing has also vowed to retaliate dollar for dollar, immediately imposing counter tariffs on American exports in tit-for-tat measures. International Monetary Fund Chief Christine Lagarde has already sounded the alarm about the cycle of retaliation. Now, let's get you all the action from the Football World Cup in Russia. And in the first of the quarterfinal to be played today, Uruguay and France are pitted in possibly one of the closest clashes, and Nizhny Novgorod Stadium will play host to the mouth-watering contest, which is being touted as a clash between Uruguay's steely defense against France's attacking football. Now, the France team limped through their group stages, but they burst into life in their exhilarating 4-3 last 16 win over Argentina, with Mbappe being the star of the show with 2 superb goals to send home Lionel Messi and company. France has performed effectively with great attacking strength through Mbappe, Griezmann and Giroud. Meanwhile, Uruguay, on the other hand, have won all their games and have just conceded 1 goal so far. They sent Messi's great rival Cristiano Ronaldo home as Cavani struck twice to steal a 2-1 win over Portugal to set up a place in the quarterfinals. Uruguay's defense they have best record at the FIFA World Cup 2018. The latest of Uruguay's 3 meetings with France at the FIFA World Cup took place at South Africa 2010, when the sides played out a goalless draw in Cape Town on 11th of June that year. All right, we have with us Jyoti Ann-Burette, a former national football player, joining us in the studio. Very good morning, Ms. Burette. So the quarterfinal of the 2018 World Cup gets underway today. There is a fascinating clash of styles really between the two teams, with both having world-class players because, you know, they are both the respective winners of their groups. And we saw France progressing with that thriller win over Argentina, and Uruguay edging past Portugal. How do you look at today's match?
Today's game is going to be very close. I think France, of course, the more attacking side, and Uruguay are going to heavily rely on that defense of theirs, which seems to be unbeatable. So Godin and Gimenez have a huge role to play today. I think Cavani will be absent due to injury. I think that he's more or less ruled out, which might be a big problem for Uruguay going forward, because Suarez will be alone up front. So they'll have to really focus on their defense, and you know, this game is going to be about stopping France and not giving them enough room to attack.
So will it be best defense of Uruguay versus best attack of the France team?
Definitely, it's going to be the best defense and the most packed midfield against a very good attacking side who are going to sort of run out of options if their lines are closed.
And Luis Suarez is confident that Uruguay can nullify the threat from, you know, France's teenage sensation Mbappe. We have to wait and watch whether that happens or not. And in the second match of the day today, Brazil and Belgium, the teams are ranked 2nd and 3rd in the world, come face to face in the World Cup second quarterfinal today at Kazan arena. Now, Brazil is the most successful national team in the FIFA World Cup and also has the best overall performance in the World Cup. They will be bidding for a record and extending 6th World Cup in Russia. Brazil is also one of the 5 sides to qualify for the last 8 without requiring extra time and penalties after outclassing Mexico 2-0 in Samara. However, Belgium arrived at the World Cup quarterfinals as the dark horses really, with the great question mark about the talent as well as their mental roughness. And Red Devils scored the last gasp winner to beat Japan 3-2 and set up a World Cup quarterfinal against Brazil. Belgium side containing the talents of Hazard, Kevin Brune and striker Lukaku have the potential to cause a World Cup upset. They have the tournament's most potent attack with the 12 goals that the Red Devils have managed, being more than any other team at the tournament so far. Let's get a reaction from Jyoti Anburet, who's joining us in the studio. Brazil have won a World Cup 5 times, but looking at the last 3 tournaments, they've been knocked out in the quarterfinals in 2 of those last 3 tournaments. But looking at it this year, Brazil have conceded only 1 goal and they have not been behind in a game. But Belgium also have similar attacking outlook.
Contrary to Brazil's usual team structures, this team has a very solid defense. And so I would say they're a very complete team, very all-rounded. And they're going up against the Belgium side that we saw had a lot of problems against Japan because they're only playing 3 central defenders. So I can see Brazil making a lot of attacks through the wings, which they like doing. And that might be a problem for Belgium. Brazil play a high attack game, high press. I feel Belgium will have to rely on their midfield to sort of keep some possession today and create something for them going forward. It's going to be a very tough game, but Brazil, I feel, have the more all-rounded team.
So you are pitching for Brazil in this match?
I think so.
And what about the other quarterfinal?
The other quarterfinal, I would expect Uruguay to actually go through, given their experience and their amazing defense.
Absolutely. And this match, can the Belgium team get the better of the 5-time world champions in Kazan and move into the last 4? We have to wait and watch. 2 very interesting quarterfinals lined up for the day. Thank you so much, Ms. Buret, for joining us this morning and sharing your perspective on all the matches. And news from Wimbledon now, where big seeds continue to tumble. In the women's singles, a defending champion Garbine Muguruza suffered a shock defeat in the second round. She lost 5-7, 6-2, 6-1 to unseeded Alison Wang. Now, the defeat means that 5 of the top 6 women's seeds have now exited the tournament in 4 days, with the top seed Simona Halep being the only player in the list to make it to the 3rd round. Halep earlier overcame a scare in the first set to beat China's Zhang Saisa 7-5, 6-0. Meanwhile, there were upsets in the men's field as well, with last year's runner-up Marin Cilic losing 3-6, 1-6, 6-4, 7-6, 7-5 in the second round to Argentine Guido Pella, who is ranked 82. Stan Wawrinka also lost against Thomas Fabiano. Twice champion Rafael Nadal, however, advanced, though the win over Kazakhstan's Mikhail Kukukshi came in 2.5 hours. And 3-time Wimbledon title holder Novak Djokovic had no problems as he cruised into the 3rd round at the All England Club. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Breakfast News. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day ahead.